Headphones in, everyone. Happy New Year.
That's really all we're going to say. I mean, if you don't know that by now, right?
Well, some people are new. They might not know our New Year's tradition.
You know, sometimes my mom says this is really funny. It's really cute. She's like, sometimes I just put you and Sarah on and I just like listen to you guys talk.
Oh,
And
dear.
I think that's really nice. But I also feel like I should tell my mother that anytime we
Mrs.
say
Reed's romance, please
headphones
don't.
in,
Not
that
today.
she should be like, not this one.
Well, to be fair, we don't always start with such a clear disclaimer, but it is the New Year's Eve episode. Welcome, everyone, to Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor.
And today we are joined by one of our very faves in life and in books. Joanna Shupe is with us. Joanna, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me, you guys.
Is this your first? This is not your first New Year's Eve episode. You were with us on the Jessica Kane episode, and we will, I'm sure, discuss on the Venn diagram of New Year's Eve episodes.
Worlds are colliding.
Exactly.
For sure. Yes, but I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we love having you always. We should explain what the New Year's Eve episode is, though, traditionally. So
and it kind of evolved.
It was an accident.
It wasn't like our first thought, but
it was an accident. We had Sierra Simone on to talk about something. Pegging. And it happened to coincide with New Year's Eve. And Eric finished like the episode early, so he dropped it like in mid-afternoon on New Year's Eve. And then a bunch of people were like, I didn't have New Year's Eve plans, so this became my New Year's Eve plan, like listening to this like raucous, kind of dirty episode. And since then, we have done a sort of dirty New Year's Eve episode every year.
Yeah. We did Jessica Kane one year, the whole group of people.
Oh, yeah. That was really fun.
Omegaversity was last year, right?
Right. A lot of discussion of semen. And so I think we've been always moving toward this episode. And we should say we are joined by Joanna Shupe, but really we are joined by Joanna Shupe's alter ego, Mila Finelli. And the reason why we are joined by Mila Finelli is because she is a real special, she has a special affinity for this particular kink.
Oh boy.
In her latest book.
Yeah, we're talking about breeding kink. So that's also your content warning. This is where to dip out.
If you're like, there's going to be a lot of talk about semen. Yeah.
Because this is a thing that is real in contemporary romance right now. And I cannot wait to get into it. In all ways, but reality.
I have some questions because I'm wondering if we should like draw some boundaries around this. I mean, I don't know, crazy idea.
Okay.
Which is I found myself thinking like, well, are we going to talk about like it's ancillary, like milking? Are we like,
well,
like where's it going to go?
Where are the boundaries? Is
right.
What we're saying.
Are there ever really boundaries?
No, probably not.
No.
No, but it's interesting because I too was thinking about milking. Wait, we're talking about milking men or milking women?
Either.
So, okay. I was thinking about Morning Glory Milking Farm this morning.
Who wasn't?
Because it's not particularly like breeding that's going on there, but the like semen piece is a part of it.
I found myself really thinking about it too, because everybody knows I like one of my reading buddies is this guy named Ernie, and Ernie loves gay porn because he's a gay man. Sure. And he was telling me once about this, like one, like really infamous, like porn movie, like gay porn movie where there's like one, like literally like hundreds of like literal buckets of cum.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, like that's like interesting to me because like, what is it like signify? You know what I mean? Like in it's like, it's not the same thing. It's not like my seed the same way, or is it? Right. So I think I was kind of thinking too, like it really is also, I think it's boundary crossing.
It's somewhere in there. It's in the Venn diagram, but I think it's on the outer edge. I also think daddy's in here.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
But like only certain versions of daddy.
Yeah, you see a lot of crossover in that.
Yeah.
You also, before we really get into like the contemporary version of it, though, I think we all have seen it and read it in historicals, because any of I need an heir.
Yes.
I mean, that's breeding.
Yes. Light breeding kink.
Real light. But I mean, think about like
barely even visible these days.
Think about that Sherry Thomas novel where the two of them, they've been estranged, and he comes back and, you know, he's like, I need an heir. They basically like hate fuck like every, you know, day for like weeks to get him an heir. I mean, to me, like that's breeding kink.
Yeah. Well, Lorraine, he is waking up with the Duke. Like, you owe me an heir. So like we have a job, like any of the we have a job to do's.
Right.
But it's interesting because you wrote, so your latest book, Mafia Virgin, is why we invited you to join us for this journey, because you tackle that particular trope really in an interesting way, because yes, the old school historical, like we need an heir, so let's get it done is one thing, but your characters need an heir, so let's get it done. But also then they realize, oh, this is hot.
They're both super into it. Yeah, that's what I thought was really awesome about
I'm going to put a baby in you.
Right. And she's sort of this studious, you know,
she has no plans for that right now.
Right. No plans for that. And but she's fascinated by anatomy and psychology. And so for her, it's why does this appeal to me? Why does this turn me on?
There's a great moment where she's like, I Googled it. And this is why it's hot. And I was like, this is perfect, Joanna. Like,
yeah. Which, of course, that was the research that I found, you know, of course, as one does.
But it's really interesting because I think part of why I loved the characterization of the heroine of Mafia Virgin is that she is all of us in many ways. Like, she's this like hyper feminist, like has a plan, like does not want to have anything to do. Like, she was born into this mafia family, but like she has no plans to like continue her life in the world of the mafia. She is going to become a physician, and she is out. Like, she is going to live her life out in the world, not related to the mafia. And like, we all sort of have this, I think anybody who has read like breeding, like kink, and sort of it has resonated with them. And I will be the first to admit, like, it definitely does resonate with me. There is a moment of like the deep feminism in me is like, why? I don't like that.
100%.
But I also like that. What's happening?
That's the part. Like, I will admit I didn't do it. Like, look, I read a lot of the stuff because it's like, it's so thick on the ground in KU right now. That's kind of gross, but whatever. Thick all over everything else.
It's not on the ground.
Yeah, no.
They don't waste
the fertile ground of your womb, Sarah. Anyway, now that I've told my mom she can't listen, I was thinking a lot about like the politics of this, right? Like, especially in a post-Roe world. And I was thinking a lot about like, I have like two kind of formative stories in my head. One I've probably told on the podcast, and one I don't know if I've ever told anyone, because I almost feel like it's a fever dream about things my mother said to me when I was a child, right? And both of them are about pregnancy. And one of them, this is the one I don't think I've ever told anyone, because I feel like, but again, my mom's not listening, and I don't know how I could have made this up. I was like 10 or 11, we're like in middle school, and we're driving in the car, and I have no idea like what prompted this or what made her say it. But in my memory, out of the middle of nowhere, she said to me, well, look, I would get pregnant at the drop of a hat, so you better be careful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then and I just remember being like, the fuck? I don't think I even thought that, right? I was just like, I don't know what to do with that information, but it is like imprinted on me. But the other part, and this is the thing where I think of this as being like, you know, when you're a kid, you don't really see your parents as good parents, right? But there's this one moment. They're just parents. They're just doing their thing, where I really understood that my mom was like being a good parent. And there were several, and I'm sure I told the story, several girls in my neighborhood. My brother was 2 years older than me, and several girls in his class got pregnant and had babies because we were in Catholics.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So my mom and I are standing out on the driveway, and I was 15, and this 17-year-old girl walks by with a baby in a stroller. It was like one of my brother's classmates, a girl like we grew up with. And my mom stopped and looked at me and said, I just want you to know that if you want to have sex, I will take you to the doctor and you can go on the pill. And then there was this long pause and she said, okay, I'm not going to do it, but one of my friends will. And I remember like really like not wanting to talk about it, but like really deeply understanding at that moment that my mom was looking at that girl and thinking, I don't want that to be you.
Mm.
And I want you to know that right now.
Well,
right?
I mean, we're in a serious place for this New Year's Eve episode, but also like it's impossible not to harken back to the Elda Minger episode, the Trailblazer episode with Elda Minger. And I don't know if you listened to this yet, Joanna, but it's really worth it. Elda was the first, as far as we know, the first contemporary romance novelist to put a condom on page, like condom use actually on page. The inventor of the crinkling foil wrapper, right? And the reality is like when she came on the podcast and we talked to her about that, she said she told a story really similar to that, Jen, where she was like, I grew up, there were a lot of girls who didn't have choices, and I wanted to make sure my heroines lived their best lives, and that meant having choices.
Well, I actually looked this up because I wanted to know, like, thinking along those lines, like of the politics and our society. And right now, the median age of US women giving birth is 30, and it's the highest it's ever been on record.
I bet.
So to me, I mean, we could go back probably 20 years ago, 15 years ago, books like this would not have been popular because I think we're just in a different place now where that like idea of breeding maybe kind of not really against your will, but a little against, I mean, just the whole, that's very tantalizing, whereas it wouldn't have been earlier.
Well, it is about choice, right? To that point, like the idea that we're looking at 30 as a median age, that means many, many, many more people who are having babies are making choices to have like overt, intentional, thoughtful choices to have babies rather than like when we were kids, it was like, of course, everybody was having babies because that's what you did. You got married, you had babies. And like now, so maybe there is space. Maybe there's just more space now for it to feel kinky. Like I choose this path in like, and so like now I don't want to use the word wallow, but like, I don't know what the word, like, I don't know, like wallow around in the breeding of it all.
Well, but I also think that the truth is
in a good way.
Now more than half the states in our country, you don't have that choice anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
or that choice is they're working to even take away birth control. I mean, so I also think that there's a part of it, like, I find it really compelling, the idea that like sometimes the things that we like explore through kink are the things that scare us, right? Or the things that sometimes we explore through kink are the things that feel out of control. And so it kind of makes sense to me, I think at some level, like, right, in my like pop psychology dumbass way, that like it would be happening now because this question of like, how and when will you be in control of your own reproductive organs if you have a uterus in this country is compromised, right? So like, of course, this is something that like the genre is playing with in a lot of really interesting ways, right? Because so, I mean, I don't know.
But it is interesting, right? Because like the genre has been through so many different iterations of pregnancy as kink, right? Like secret the heyday of secret babies, right? In the 80s and early 90s, like that stuff was also like people got accidentally pregnant and like there was never any discussion of what you could do. Right. Like secret baby requires you to have the child, right? To bear the child. And so I think, but that's not breeding kink. Like that doesn't feel like kink to me at all. That feels like,
I think that was I think that was about making families. And I think in the era of big divorce, right? Like that kind of makes sense to me that like those were like conversations romance was having. This is a conversation about like actually getting pregnant. Yeah. Right.
The process of it.
Yeah. Right.
But it's also about a lot more. And that's
of course,
the stuff that I'm
that's
like,
the fun stuff.
I'm interested in the fun stuff for this conversation. I mean, like, obviously,
I just think
everybody
we can't
who wants to police bodies.
Sure. Right. I just think we can't talk about that without talking about like where we are. Right. Like we say all the time. Right. Like, so I don't want to make it like real boring, but I found myself thinking a lot about like, of course, breeding kink is big now. This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Lucy Morris, author of Snowed In with the Viking.
I'm already in, and the reason why is because I love it when a title just delivers the goods. And what I want right now, more than anything, is to leave this recording and go read about being snowed in with a Viking. So here's the deal on this. The heroine, Embla, has been lost in the remote wilderness in a snowstorm, which is very bad luck, until she has the very good luck of being rescued by local wild man / Viking Runar and taken to his cabin where there is, well, how many beds are there, Jen?
It's one. I'm assuming it's like a bed made of straw or like a cot or something because he's a Viking.
I bet there's fur on there.
Obviously, there's fur.
Anyway, Runar warms her icy body with his because she's cold.
Yes.
From being in the snowstorm, and passion inflames them both. But Embla has heard the rumors for years about this wild man / Viking. But if you're going to be stranded for weeks with one, you should probably trust them and also, I don't know, bang it out. It's going to be great. That's what it's going to be.
It is going to be great. And the reason we know this is because we have read and recommended books by Lucy before. You have heard us talk about A Nun for the Viking Warrior. So this is someone who really knows how to deliver. This is one of these great Harlequin historicals. So it's also going to be a really quick, fast read. If you are interested in forced proximity, snowed in, we've already mentioned, romance in the Arctic Circle, and a plus-size heroine.
Something for everyone here.
Something for everyone. Then you should definitely check out Snowed In with the Viking by our friend Lucy Morris.
You can get it in print or ebook, or if you are listening on a podcast app, you can look right down at your app right now and click the link that you see, and it'll take you directly to purchase this book. Happy New Year. Hope you get snowed in with a Viking.
Thank you to Lucy for sponsoring this week's episode.
Do we feel like reading kink is as big now as it was like 5 years ago? Because I feel like, for me, it feels like the Alexa Riley, Jessica Kane era, which is over now. I mean, not that Alexa Riley, well, Jessica Kane is done. R.I.P. Jessica Kane's
R.I.P. R.I.P. You're welcome to come back anytime, Jessa.
Everybody, you should know that. If you don't know that, we're telling you now. Jessica Kane has hung up her pen, and you can still get all the books. But like, it does feel to me, Jen, like there is like what is new on KU is not this.
I think what's new, it's like the daddy part of it. I think it's that this is it's a younger woman. Right? I don't know. That's an interesting question.
But I do feel like the thing that felt super taboo about Alexa Riley, and it was Alexa Riley, I think for me, was the first person. And I think like they're a writing duo, and they sort of rose up out of like the churn in KU in the early, like, I don't know, 5 years ago? About?
Maybe more.
It's got to be more.
Yeah. Because they're not even on Amazon anymore.
Yeah. The Kelly rule is add 2 to whatever time frame you're thinking about.
Yeah, so 5 to 7 years ago. And they sort of bubbled up out of it. And it was the first time that I had ever read where every single book was like you're
I'm
18,
going to get you pregnant.
I'm going to put a baby in you, and then I'm going to keep you pregnant. That's the other weird thing is like,
oh yeah, sure.
Then like, you're just going to be a baby machine. And like those books also had like multiple epilogues. Do you remember that? Like it was like 2 months
2 years later,
5 years later, 10 years later.
Baby number 3, baby number 4.
Baby number 42.
Yeah.
You're like,
well, and they're billionaires, so no one is ever worried about saving for college either, right?
No, no.
Right?
No.
And you got lots of money for nannies.
Well, that's it. It's baby making without babies.
Yeah.
Right? Like, unlike Secret Baby, where like that's a family and you have to put that on page.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the logical end of that. The logical end of this is just getting knocked up.
Yeah. We're not talking about the actual pregnancy and like the stretch marks and the everything else that goes with it.
The infant.
Right. Right.
The crying.
The 11-year-old.
The 20-year-old just being like, can I take your car? All those things.
But don't you think paranormal has a lot of this too? Like with like the Ice Planet Barbarians, where it's, you know, I've got this thing inside me that has to be, you know, I'm in heat.
Well, for Ice Planet Barbarians, it's not that as much as it's like we're literally rebuilding society. Like this band of like blue aliens, there's so few of them left, and these women are going to crash land, and they're going to resonate and fated mates. But like having babies means like society will continue.
But I think I hear what Joanna's saying though, because like Cressley, like her hero, it's gallons. It's gallons of goo there.
Oh yeah, completely.
And so I do think like it is a continuum. Now we have arrived at
Morning Glory Milking Farm.
Yeah, it's like Cressley was writing gallons of goo, but like we weren't processing, like we didn't have the words to put to it what we were like thinking, like what our like like primordial brain like goo was doing during that. But now like this is a tag on Amazon which is so weird.
Well, don't you think that's AO? Okay, because the other question I had is like, where does MPreg fit into this?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that to me is more AO3. Like anytime there's like tags, I'm like, yeah, but that's because of AO3, not because of Amazon.
It is the like data. It's the metadata on these books. Okay, so let's get into it. Why is it so hot? Why? Okay. Also, wait. One other thing I have to say before we get into the why. Sorry, I know I was taking that turn, but I'm pausing. Okay. The other thing that's in here that we haven't talked about is I Gotta Go Bear.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
right?
Like layers to unpack here.
This is also hot in a troublesome way. And I think, but here's the thing. I do think for historical, like one of the reasons why historical works so well for so many readers is I Gotta Go Bear. Like there's just never a condom on, like nobody thinks about it.
Right.
No,
nobody's
false.
soaking.
They think about it, but like it's sort of waved away.
Right.
Because I Gotta Go Bear is a thing.
Yeah.
And that's all over romance. So anyway, I'm just putting that out there. Like all these things, it's like this perfect storm of like, the reason why breeding works is because it's a little of all of these, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's very much like a control thing too, right? I mean, I think we kind of a little bit got tired of BDSM.
Oh, that's a good point.
And so I feel like this is a control thing. In Mafia Virgin, it's meant to be more mental really than actually he's trying to, it's like they just want to talk about it and it's not really meant to be so literal. I feel like a lot of these books, it is very literal.
No, it feels like they're having a lot of fun with it. Well, listen, I did not say, I don't know if this was left in the episode because I didn't listen to it, but on an earlier episode in a recording, I said that Mafia Virgin might be my favorite of the Mila books because, and I said this to you via text too, like this hero is a real, like,
I love him.
Has like a soft nuggety center, right? Like he's like, as like cut from McLean cloth in a lot of ways, right? Like I really love this hero because he feels so like rough around the edges, but like even you peel back one little like corner of it and like he's just gone for her. And I love that. But it also feels like they're having a lot of fun. Like when they figure out that they think this is hot.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's so fun for them.
Yeah. Well, and I love the like setup of like neither, like it's fascinating. Like it's so brilliant because it's like they both get really turned on by it, but like neither of them actually really want to have a baby and get trapped into, like, you know what I mean? Like they don't want someone telling them like, you have to do this thing. So it's also like being attracted to something that like is so forbidden, like literally, like they don't want it, but they want it. And it's awesome. Right. So maybe talk a little bit, like, did this surprise you or was this always going to be like the plot of this book?
Well, I feel like, it did surprise me. I wasn't planning on going there. I feel like you do kind of see a little bit of this in Mafia because you see like the forced marriage.
Yes. Children are the future.
And children, right? Children
heirs.
To solidify heirs, the whole thing. So you do sort of see it a lot. And so for me, because she's so scientific, that I wanted to like play with with that a little bit and her fascination with psychology and anatomy and
and science, right?
Why this would be so hot. But they are forced to marry, and then they're also told you have to produce an heir within 6 months. And then that 6 months gets moved up to 3 months because, romance reasons. So for me, that was, and then that's in their heads the whole time. That's in their heads that they have this like looming date of procreation hanging over their heads. And so I didn't expect it. It just, I don't know. You don't know you never know where these things come from. But I think, because of KU, I've been reading more of the breeding stuff, and it just was there and it came out on the page.
I think it's also really interesting because the big difference between like Mafia Virgin and then like some of the books where it's just like the trope, right, is that they don't know that they're going to be turned on by it, right? So like they're discovering, and we've talked a lot before about like how would people define erotic romance, and one of my favorite definitions from Jennifer Porter is it's like people undergoing like a sexual journey together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like essentially figuring out like, oh, we're through sex, like figuring out something about themselves and each other. And I think in that sense, like this book really works perfectly for that, because they are both like, there's no way we're going to do this. And yet they're both so into it.
Mm-hmm.
And they, like Sarah said, it's also really fun. Like they have a lot of fun together. And I do think that that's something I really enjoy in romance, is like people who like find the right partner and start to really have a great time together. Like sex is fun. It's not all just like, like either like this like soul destroying thing or, it's fun. And I think that that's what I really liked about the way this plays out, is it surprises them too.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think as a reader, if you're going to believe it, you want to see them having fun with it. I didn't want it to be one-sided. I didn't, because then it starts to feel gross. And listen, I've read those books too. I can make recommendations, but yeah, I really wanted it to be something that they're both enjoying.
Yes. Leaving aside the sort of dark romance, the books that are edging up on dark romance where like consent is dubious at best, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think most of these, Jessica Kane, Alexa Riley, the kind of the ones who are kind of best known for breeding, it's not as dubious in the consent. There are some in each of them, but like for the most part, it's like, this is hot, we're both into it, and also it's happening. Like I think your point about control, about like the sort of dominance of it, and like it being tangential to BDSM is really interesting to me, because it is that is the real sense that you get from these books. Like breeding is going to happen, but also you're going to be taken. Like invariably, these books are like, he sees her one time, he's obsessed with her,
right?
He's going to keep her and protect her and love her, and like it's like all the hallmarks of the kind of old school historical alpha, plus this new kind of awareness of semen.
I guess we have to get there, right?
I mean, it's interesting because I've been noodling this for a while since we decided this was going to be the topic we were going to do. And these like old school books that are, which are like really about, you're right, like it's like rutting in a lot of ways. And like the early, not to put too fine a point on it, but like in the early pages of these, in the early sex in these books, right? It just feels like animalistic in a lot of ways, but like never gets to semen.
Never gets to any.
Like spend is about as close as we get, and it's never like
nothing
never
is
there.
ever
never,
as
like,
wet as it is now.
No, nobody. It's not messy. There's no like.
There's nothing like earthy about it. It's just like so, But it's also all the language was so coded, right? Like,
but like even in the language, Jen, like what is? I guess it is spend.
The proof
like,
of his love.
It. Yeah.
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 Feed.
He knocks on the adjoining door very politely. He's already He's in his robe. She's under the covers.
Right? There's just a
yeah.
hole in the sheet. Fine.
Yeah. He would climb in. As soon as he finished, he'd put the robe on and he'd leave.
Right. But I mean, if it's like a velvet cave and his, member, like
His iron member.
how are you going to get to like buckets of semen? You're not. There's no way. There's no path from there to there. Right.
No. So what is it? Why is semen so hot now in a way that it was? And I don't mean hot like sexy hot, although maybe I do mean that. I mean more like, why is it so popular right now? Semen is so hot right now. Why is that?
I really think we're working through some things. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I think it's tangential proof, right? It's tangential proof of how much he wants you.
Yeah.
It's also probably some control issues there too, depending on where it lands and
yeah,
where it goes.
You're right. Yeah. That hot, like that sort of the unraveling. Is it a shorthand for feelings?
Oh.
Jen and I have talked a lot on the podcast about how like there is a feeling problem in romance right now, right? Like in for a long time we were limited by like the concrete noun, right? Like in sex scenes or in, wherever, the language would just be inconclusive, right? But like now that we have access to jets of cum, right?
Buckets.
I love that idea that it's control, like the losing control too. Because I mean, that is hot, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's in his pants, that's never hot. Sorry, to me, that's never hot. There's like a way, right? It is.
Well, I have written one of those scenes, and it is largely believed to be one of my sexiest scenes. But I'm sorry, I don't know.
I support you.
I wrote it in One Good Earl Deserves a Lover.
I like a guy that like can't. That's just too worked up and too.
I mean, not all the time, but I do like it. I wrote a dude who was celibate. He like hadn't had sex in 14 years or something. So. This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Avalon Griffin, author of Unbound by Shadows.
So everybody loves romantasy right now, and this is the perfect book for you. And I know that because it's a book I worked on. So this book has Celine, who is like super just like chill. Everything works out for her. She doesn't get herself all upset or worked up. She's like really perfected, like kind of being a nice person. Which all seems to be working fine until she is magically transported through a portal to a dimension called Aurelia, where she discovers that being nice all of a sudden is getting her in a lot of hot water.
Those portals will get you.
Exactly. So she meets up with Samael, who she thinks of as kind of an ally because it turns out he's also been kind of kidnapped and brought there and is trying to find a way back home. And so he is also a vengeance demon, which makes his glances towards her very smoldery.
Perfect. No notes.
Right. And so they're going to go on a quest together, which is like a big fantasy trope that everyone loves, see that world, and to go on the stone that she thinks will like kind of magically transport her back to her world. Problem is, he's thinking it might transport him back to his.
Ooh.
So maybe he's going to double cross her. Maybe he's going to fall wildly in love with her. Who could say?
I mean, I think I could probably say, but all right, this one's for anybody who loves a fated mate, who loves it when they fall first, when he falls first, who loves touch her and die. That's my fave.
Yeah, and I think the other thing you should know, everybody, is like this is basically like a Court of Thorns and Roses matched up with Ice Planet Barbarians. Who could resist?
People are smashing that buy link right now, which you can do if you look right down onto the app right now. You'll see a link that you can click. And it'll take you direct to purchase this book. You can get it in print, in ebook, or with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. And thanks to Avalon Griffin for sponsoring this week's episode.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just speaking out of turn, but like in real life, has anyone actually felt like individual jets of cum inside them?
See, now this is an interesting question because I feel similarly like this but that is from old. All romance since the dawn of time.
It's been around for a while, but still used.
But you could feel like it painting the inside of you. We said headphones in.
from the jump, there have been ways in which we've described this process that is not really like it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, flooding. Flooding her
Well,
insides.
like all sorts of things, right? Like so many things are codified in romance that are known like physiologically to be rare, like constant simultaneous orgasms every time.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's something we're in the semen years.
As we head into 2024,
we went from Navy SEALs to seamen. Get it?
Romance generations. Here we are. NPR, call us anytime.
But yeah, I love your point that, I mean, so here's my question then, because I keep thinking about what you said, Joanna, earlier about how in historicals, right? Like it's, we have to have heirs. But another big common trope in historicals is like the line ends with me, right? So I'm also kind of curious about the way in which, like in Mafia Virgin, he's playing around with that too, right? Like you're playing around with that too, because Giacomo does not want, he was really tortured by his father and his brother. He was never good enough. He was never, the right kind of mafioso. They just thought he was like a big dumb thug. So, I mean, I think the other thing about this is that's really interesting is it's sort of like this acceptance, that like I could be a father, or I could be embracing this as like a potential future for myself.
I think in Mafia Virgin, that's
yes.
true.
Yeah.
But in these other books, those babies are not important in any, like the product.
No, it's about, no, I would
loaf
agree.
of bread is not important. What's important is the ingredient. Right? I mean, like at no point has any Jessica Kane hero for even a second thought about parenthood.
No, of course not.
It's always, and they are, they're always, I feel like the Jessica Kane heroes are thinking, I want to see her round and swollen with my child, and I want to see her.
Well, that's where the milk comes in, right?
Boobs like giant, like there's rumors like that.
I want to see her as a fertility goddess, not as
correct, not as an actual mother.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the part that's really interesting about breeding kink, right? Because it's like
it's really heteronormative in a lot of ways. Like
yes,
in every way, right?
Well, not though in MPreg, like not like I don't know what's happening. Again, we did that whole episode last year and I still don't understand the Omegaverse, but something's going on over there that's not going on in these books.
Right.
But yeah, it's like, so there's, but I can't get to the bottom of it. It's perplexing.
Yeah, for me in Mafia Virgin, it wasn't as much thinking about what it would mean when they had kids. There wasn't really like the thought of what if it really happens. It was more
the doing it, right?
Yeah, just the doing it.
I was gonna say, I do think that you're onto something though about it being really taboo to be like fucking without condoms.
Yeah, because maybe that's part of what's happening here, right? Like leave it, like acknowledging all the things that Jen has said about like politics in the world and like what it looks like right now in 2023. Although I do think there's like a dating thing here, like that's happening in terms of, I don't know how popular breeding kink is going to be in the next year,
right?
The way it was, but let's hope not as much. But let's see. I don't know. Maybe not. If Jen's right, let's hope not as much. But leaving aside all of that, there is this sort of bigger question of like, you can't do this in real life. This is like one of the most like
fantasy, like fictional.
I mean, if you choose to do this, you are very likely going down a path that ends in college tuition.
Right.
Right. And if any of these men did this in real life, I mean, they're monsters.
Exactly.
Right. This is, am I the asshole in real life? Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, the other thing we haven't talked about, nobody has said this word yet, but like is virginity, which is also in here. Like, and like in the title of Mafia Virgin, but like this virginity as like some sort of sexual ideal.
Right.
Which is romance forever and ever. Amen. Like, I mean, that has always been the case in romance.
Right. And in Mafia, it's that in Mafia romance, that's like a big prize. They all,
Because mafia, as Sophie Jordan likes to say, mafia romance is just medieval romance in a different outfit.
Right.
Right. So it's literally like having sex and then showing. I mean, I
Showing the
really
bloody
appreciated the bloody sheet moment, right? Like, because
right.
That's a real old school way of looking at it. And so that's all packed in here too. Like there's a reason why these are all like 19-year-old virgins.
Right.
So do you think it's also about like, okay, so going back to the like she's round, the bloody sheets or whatever, it's like the proof of consummation is public.
Yes. So it's like a real manhood thing too. Like I want to show off her virginity. I want to show off like that I can get her pregnant, that she's like round and big with my baby. And
well, there's that. There are all those. Is it Jessica Kane who did all the ones where like they fuck in front of her dad, they fuck in front of the priest?
Yeah, there were a couple of those. Yeah,
it's like in front of all of the people who
the patriarchy
might
literally
have control over. Yeah, I mean, all the handmaidens of the patriarchy. Yeah,
right. It's like the priest, her dad, her brothers, whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. That goes along with it, right? Like the proving, and that's like where it's harder for me because, like, why? Like, what would be the like virginity is so weird to me. I'm not that interested in it as like a topic even, or I'm certainly not interested really in it as like a piece of characterization, but it is interesting to me in terms of like, well, why? Like, right. Like why is like breeding this virgin better than just like any old lady who's, 29 and has had a lot of fun in her, in the past decade? Like what's
right.
Right. Cause it's like literal, like from virginity to motherhood with no stops in between.
Well, the hero in Mafia Virgin thinks about that a lot because he's the second child. So he feels like he never was first for anything. So for him, the kink is really being first. Like, she's mine. I was first. No one else has had her. So I think that's also maybe where some of the virginity stuff comes from in romance. Just the idea of like planting your seed first.
Yeah, listen, this is like, I'm sorry for my brain being the way it is, but like here we are.
Semen as flag.
Yeah. But in the Jessica Kane one with Alexa Riley, where they fuck in front of the priest, and I don't remember the name, you're gonna have to look at show notes. He's literally like, they're literally doing it while the priest is marrying them. And he says, the hero, again, no idea what his name is, but I will never forget this, says, make her my wife while I make her a mother.
Oh,
wowzer.
That's super hot. Sorry.
Right?
Sorry.
I mean, but like, obviously I think the same thing because I just told you, I do not know the names of those characters. I do not know the name of that book, but I would bet you $1 million that I have correctly exactly remembered that line. Right. So sorry, everybody. But it was hot. I mean, I remembered it vividly, right?
Very hot.
Also, can we talk about how, and this goes back to the point that I was making earlier about daddy and other sort of ancillary taboos and how they all sort of fit together, right? Like breastfeeding kink is in here. Like if the book goes far enough, usually at the end, there's breastfeeding kink too in these. So like, it's all this kind of like there are all these taboos mixed together. Like I'm thinking about, there's a QB Tyler. Everybody knows, I think QB Tyler's like a really top-notch erotic romance writer.
A genius.
She has a book called Bittersweet Addiction, where it's doctor patient and breeding kink. And like, so that's in here too. There are a lot of actually breeding books where the doctor, these edge really far into the erotica side of things, but like, where like the doctor, it's, a gynecologist or whatever. Right. And so none of this is okay in real life, but it is like particular, like kink is kink.
Right.
Right. So I think like the layering of kinks that's happening in a lot of these books, like the heavy daddy books that are also breeding books, like the mafia, the dark mafia romance that's also breeding.
It's that that trope wheel.
Yeah, right.
Just leveling up.
Yeah, stepfathers, in front of the priest, in front of the dad. Yeah, I mean, like virgins, like all of this stuff just kind of coming together. Not to put a fine point on it. And like there's so it's all just packed in there. Now everything sounds dirty.
I know. Now I'm like
everything
I'm
I
like
say sounds dirty.
Sure. But you know, if someone's doing their dishes and laughing themselves silly right now, you're welcome.
I hope so. I hope their headphones are in.
God. Well, because it's like it is like one of these things where I am fascinated by it because it's literally like, why is it hot? Like, why is it hot? Like because it is, right? I think it's just really primal too. This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Megan Quinn, author of He's Not My Type.
Okay, this one sounds like she just sat down and like opened a vein, my vein possibly, and just wrote a book for me. So everyone knows I love an unrequited love story, and this is so cute. The hero here is a hockey player with a bunch of meddling, like Cupid playing teammates who have discovered that the girl that the hero has been obsessed and in love with, unrequited, who has never noticed him for the past year, has finally become single and needs a roommate. And so they shenanigan their way into getting these two to living together and then basically coach him on all the ways that he can win her over, including things like don't wear a shirt, obviously, make her dinner, and lightly touch her shoulder when he says goodbye to her. But he is so flustered by this whole situation and so overwhelmed and so completely head over heels for this girl who barely notices him that he just like loses all control and offers to fake date her at a wedding to make her ex jealous. Perfect. I have absolutely zero notes on any of this. This sounds great. I cannot wait to get my hands on it and read it myself. And so I think this might be perfect for lots of people out there.
Yeah, everyone loves a hockey romance. Megan Quinn writes a real banger. If you're interested in He's Not My Type, look down right now in your podcasting app and click the link, and that will take you to a buy link. But to make sure that you understand that this book is your type, there is a free audio excerpt of the beginning of this book at the end of the episode. So you can drift right into the new year with He's Not My Type and then check out this great book by Megan Quinn. It is available in print, ebook, or audio, or with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. Thank you so much to Megan Quinn for sponsoring this week's episode.
But this is romance, right? Like this is where I come back. I'm back to like, is it feelings, right? Yeah. Because I think for many people who started reading romance when their brains were still mush, right? And I like Jen and me, and I don't know, when did you, and you, Joanna?
Yeah.
Like if you started reading romance when you were a teenager and like you were building, like synapses were learning to fire as you were reading these books,
right.
Like there is something primordial in these. Like there is a like reptilian brain thing happening when you read romance novels. And
sure.
as the genre matures and the books, some of the books like kind of try to be more cerebral and maybe like leap out of the pool in a lot of ways and like appeal to a broader audience of readers, there are fewer and fewer of these like reptilian brain books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this does that for us. And like, I think everybody on this podcast right now agrees that like, there are some things pretty fucked up about this, but also like you find what is hot. Like that's just how it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, to me, it's almost like an evolution or a twist on the old no until it's yes. Which, okay, I grew up reading that, and right or wrong, I enjoyed it. I'm just going to say it. So, but you can't do that anymore. So this to me is almost like a way of twisting that a little bit.
Well, and we have, I think, argued that over the course of the podcast that like tropes that have become like sort of too toxic to exist in like a realistic romance, right? have found their way, have essentially like wiggled around and turned themselves around and found a way to exist in like different parts of the pool, like under a different kind of face. And so, you know, I mean, I think that, you know, we are constantly making the case that, you know, that there's always someone that is, you know, because sexual relationships and because our society is the way it is and because, you know, gender is the way it is and our exploration of like what that means because of like the way we exist in, you know, our feminist minds and our actual bodies, right? Like, so it makes sense to me that, you know, when it comes down to it, fear, like if you have a uterus, like, right, like fear of getting pregnant, like, right, like my period's a day late, oh my God, right, like, is it menopause enough, like, right, like all the ways in which like it really does low key have such an impact on your life. And these are books that like put that front and center, right? And so in a weird, but like again though, like out of your control, right, as opposed to something you're constantly trying to manage.
Yeah.
Or the opposite, not out of your control. And like I mean, like there are a lot of these books where the women are in it. They're like, do it. I'm ready. Again, not thinking about college tuition, but definitely making a choice, right? Leaping into this. And you're right. Like I say all the time, like no one tells you when you're 20 how much you're going to worry about. No one tells you when you're like 15 how much you're going to worry about getting your period over the course of your like adult life, right? And then for the period of time that you are not getting your period, if you do choose to have a baby, like then you're spending at least some part of that like hoping that you don't get your period. Like you spend so much time thinking about your period that, to your point, Jen, like there is something really freeing about I want whatever comes here. This experience is kinky and sexy and fun, and I'm not worried.
And it's out of my hands.
Yeah. In 3 weeks, I am not going to be worried one way or the other.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think that like maybe in its purest form, you know, there's like a lot of really interesting conversations that are happening about like on social media, like, right, like you'll see people who will sort of say like essentially like, well, that's the only, you know, I guess conservative Christians, like that's the only reason anytime you have sex, you have to understand that you could be making a baby. Like that's the whole purpose of it. And then you have people like us who are like, no, the purpose is because it's fun and it's intimate and you like being with someone. That's actually not the purpose. But like maybe in its purest forms, these two things are like joined together, right? Like,
yeah,
that's fucked up.
I read an article. I read an article talking about fucked up. I read an article about softcore porn being peddled to young conservative men with women on the internet, you know, on social media, projecting these characters where they are these happy homemakers who,
right.
Yeah. Did you guys see this?
Yeah. The TikTok thing.
All the
like
TikToks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it's just, but the young men don't know that it's fictional.
It's cosplay, right?
Right. But they don't understand that. So I don't know where I'm going with this other than like.
They don't understand that like most housewives in the 50s and 60s were on meth. Like,
right.
I you know, the thing that's always really hard for me is it's like, I think really have a like firm stance that like romance readers understand when they're reading romance that they're not reading real life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I guess I'm just always like my knee-jerk response, even if like is always to be very wary of any sort of argument that starts off with like another group of people being really clueless about what they're consuming. Right. And I have not read this article. And, you know, I do think a lot of people like thoughtlessly consume whatever, but it's just like a really interesting, like, the way that like my romance reader brain automatically is like, okay, but wait, what if they're really thoughtfully? And then I'm like, wait, what if they're thoughtfully consuming the Mormon mom porn, you know? But yeah, like I worry about how reactionary TikTok is. Sometimes I worry about how reactionary these books are, right? Like, because sometimes it does feel like, right, like there's part of that's like my feminist brain. It's kind of like, how can I here I am, like spending my entire life like worrying about the fact that like we've rolled back rights for like women younger than us, that many of them really actually are going to be treated like incubators. And yet here I am at the same time, like loving sometimes and thinking it's really hot, like the exploration of that as kink. Like how do, like my brain hurts trying to make myself understand like what is happening up there. And maybe that's just why it is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, the extension of this, I said this earlier, but like, you know, the lactation piece of this, right? The breastfeeding piece of this.
Oh, yeah.
As you get further on, right? Like there is much less of that out there than there is this. But, you know, one of the things I think about a lot related to that kind of romance or like that kink in romance is like, what if this thing that in many ways makes you feel like part of you isn't yours is for pleasure, right? Like, and so I think, and you can claim it as something that is pleasurable for you. And so like, I think this is one of those interesting things. I think like with all of the like complex things that we talk about on the podcast, like it cuts so many different ways. And I'm not denying that there isn't a deeply problematic version of like way to look at this, right? But I do think in a lot of ways, like there's something very freeing about the idea of like this particular act being super sexy and like not scary. And because it remains scary for people through life.
Yeah.
Well, as it should be. Like women die in childbirth or whatever, right? And it is scary. I think that's the part of it that's like really compelling to me. This idea that it's like the fearlessness of it, right? But I also think it's interesting. Like we've talked about like some of these big like slices of the pie, like right, there's daddy, and then there's, you know, like breeding, and then there's like secret baby, and then there's virgins, and then but like there's like a whole subset of like milking, like breastfeeding women kink, where they are just like taking like drugs or something, like they were never pregnant.
Yes,
yeah.
The
so
Alabaster Cafe, or whatever that is.
Right. And and so it's also really
check
fascinating
show notes, everyone.
to me. Yeah, it's also really fascinating to me how you can like slice up this and like separate, or like mpreg, right? Like separate like it out, like distill out some part of the kink and talk about it on its own without worrying about all the other stuff.
Well, like
right?
Morning Glory Milking Farm, right?
Yes.
Like, and you're just, I'm holding up a bottle of like Poland Spring, but like there is a reason why that book landed.
Right.
So huge. And it's not because it's like a Minotaur. It's not. It's because of 24 ounces of liquid. And like all of us were like, what is
happening here?
It's weird. I mean, like there is just something, it's our fucked up animal brains. It's our monkey brain in there, just like monkeying around.
Yeah. I mean, just the whole like, you know, in heat, the whole, you know, got to do it. It's, you know, it's primal.
Literally, right? Like your brain has nothing to do with it. We're the only, you know, creatures on Earth who get in our feelings about whether or not we should be doing this thing.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Should we recommend some books? Round robin. I said QB Tyler already, but let me say it again.
Yeah,
QB Tyler's Bittersweet Addiction. But if you're in the QB Tyler universe, you're going to bump up on this.
Yeah.
It's not every book, but it's many of them.
Yeah. She just really had one release yesterday, I think.
Oh, really?
And there's one before that I just finished that is dad's, her best friend's dad, who's a former NFL.
Yeah, I read that
player.
The other day.
The Worst Kept Secret, I think that one is. That's a good one. My recommendation is the Royals of Forsyth University series. It's sort of like Mafia, but set in college.
I'm sorry, Royal Universities. I love it.
Royals of Forsyth University by Angel Lawson and Samantha Rue. And they have each section, each frat has its own like little kingdom. And the one that they're doing now are the princes, who are obsessed with creation and breeding. And I mean, I'm absolutely feral for that series. So that's
amazing.
Princes of Chaos. Just
Terrific. Sure. I feel like so it's interesting because to me, I think I don't know if I read a lot where like it's like full on. I guess I feel like Chloe Maine, like who is like a Jessica Kane, you can hear it in the pen names, the echo of that name, has quite a few where it's like kind of starts out as daddy, but like Chloe has all of her like the epilogues you can like download like from her site, like a bonus epilogue, and in every single one of them she's pregnant at the end. So I feel like those like kind of do like to me it's like a little bit lighter. It's not quite all as hardcore as the the ones or whatever. I'm like Googling right now to see what I've been reading in Kindle Unlimited.
There's a great everybody knows I love Saffron Kent. Her You Beautiful Thing You is so Saffron's books are all fairly long and like really in their feelings. Like these are big, dark, like emotional, like heavy. This is an intense book. This is not a quick read. Or it's not like a 2-hour read. But the heroine is like alone and like deeply lonely, and she wants to get pregnant because for all the wrong reasons. She wants to get pregnant because she wants to have a baby who will love her unconditionally forever. And so she decides that she is going to seduce her brother's rival, who she has been in love with forever and who like she thought was in love with her for a while, and then it turned out like he was only using her to exact revenge on her brother, and so she's going to like double revenge him and like get pregnant and then leave him, except they sort of fall into the reality that like they both have a breeding kink. And then it's like, of course, super tumultuous and there's a lot of emotion and it's very fun.
I downloaded a book last night I didn't actually read, but I was like, wow, look at that cover. And it is called Bread for Him by Jenna Rose, which is, I think, another like Jessica Kane. And this is like a pregnant girl, like kind of all covered in lace on the cover.
Terrific.
And,
Go ahead.
Yeah. And I just like, I kind of was like, I'm like, again, like, I think that these books are like, it's like very, there's no mistaking it, like what's happening right there on the, you know what I mean? If that's the title and she's pregnant right there on the cover. So
for those who have not maybe read Jessica Kane and dip their toe into those breeding kink waters, which one would you guys recommend? I mean, for me, it's the mobster's masseuse.
Of course it is.
Oh yeah, sure.
I know. Right. Of course. I'm so predictable. Or Suddenly His. Those are my two.
God, we did a whole Jessica Kane episode. They are all breeding kink, if I remember correctly. Like literally all
sort of, right? Okay, the one where he says, make her my wife while I make her a mother is taken by the Russian. And you would have to buy it on like Kobo or Apple Books because it is not on, because it's Alexa Riley and Jessica Kane. You would have to buy
Alexa
that
Riley is not on
on Amazon. You'd have to buy it like, at another fine purveyor of these titles.
I cannot off the top of my head remember my favorite Jessica Kanes, but I will do the research after and put them in show notes. There is also, I will say, Alexa Riley, like the one that I think I read first, and I feel like, okay, it was published in 2015, so 8 years is the one.
Yeah.
That's the number. Is Coach.
Yep.
You can imagine what other taboo is in there as well. But there's a whole series, and it's like there's a coach one, there's a teacher one, there's a like principal one, and then there's also like Alexa Riley writes Alexa Riley erotic romance, and then they also write as AR Taboo. Literally, that's the name, last name Taboo, because name
straight
is
up telling
Destiny.
us, right?
And that is straight up just like pure filth. So like if you feel like even these erotic romances are just like not there enough for you, just like sail on over to the Alexa Riley website. And I think you have to buy those direct from their website.
Sure. They're like, nobody will carry it. Yeah. The
So-
other one I would say, the Jessica Kane one I remember is Stepbrother Secret.
Oh yeah.
He is a politician and she is his stepsister. And at the end, I think it's like basically like she's pregnant and they've just told everyone that it's like some guy or whatever, but it's him. So it also is like the taboo is also about like keeping the secret and no one knows. So I think that also plays into that whole like, I did this, like, right? Like I knocked her up, like my manhood or whatever, but like also no one else knows. Like it's this huge
layers upon layers upon layers.
Yep.
of a taboo. Yeah.
And then of course there's Chloe Maine, who is
Right,
the
which I
third,
mentioned,
the Alexa Riley, Jessica Kane, Chloe Maine.
Trifecta, yeah.
Yeah. And that one, the one that I remember, he's a Navy SEAL and he comes home to find her in like hiding in his cabin, and she's basically squatting in his cabin. And that is called Operation: Wife Her Up. Which I think actually does speak to something that we sort of danced around a little, but didn't really like put a solid pin in, which is also this like, none of these are like, I'm going to put a baby in you and leave you. Like, this
Oh,
is
no.
Oh,
we're
yeah.
going to get married.
We're going to get married. Yeah.
Live. Like, that's it. It's you forever and ever.
Very
Yeah,
very heavy, like mine vibes.
Sure.
Yeah. It's like forever, I'm going to keep you safe. You're mine. And it's very difficult to ignore the appeal of that. Like that sort of idea that like somebody will take care of you.
Any other recommendations? Did we say everything we needed to about Mafia Virgin? I think one of the other things to me that's interesting about Mafia Virgin is that in Mafia Virgin, they're like trying to get pregnant or right, or they have to.
Right.
But simultaneously, her older sister has had kids and is parenting, right? And so the other thing that's like really like, again, the part that like delineates this from like pure erotica is like the whole problem with Mafia Virgin is like, we think it's hot, but like, do we really want to be a family? Like that's like a real push-pull in the text, right? So, and she's seeing what this looks like. What does it look like when you give birth to a son? And everyone's like, that's the future heir. Like I'm raising a killer, right?
Right.
So I think that that's the other part that makes it's so much higher stakes than just like it's sexy erotica kink.
And her like intellectual struggle between I want to be a physician and take like the Hippocratic Oath.
Yeah.
And also you're out here
Murdering
breaking people's knees.
Yes. Right.
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 Well, and then if you have a daughter, what does that mean? I mean,
Right.
you know, you're signing her up to be, bartered and traded and, so it's, yeah, I mean, that's why I think for them, it was important that it was mostly, something they shared, that they enjoyed, that it was fictional, that it was not.
Yeah.
Because I think, in a lot of these books, they aren't really thinking about how they're going to parent together. They're not really thinking of this man as a actual father. Like, will he be a good dad? I don't know.
No. Yeah.
Will he go to soccer games? I don't know.
No, but what I want is like next gen Mila Finelli, where like all the girls are the heads of the capos.
That would be fun. all the men are in prison.
Yeah.
So the women have to run everything.
Anyway, well, we've done it again. Filled an hour just breaking brains out there. Happy New Year, everyone. We are
Happy New Year.
Very thrilled that you are still with us and that you are hanging on for all of our exciting conversations. Yeah, we hope 2024 brings everybody the best books. That's my wish for everyone. Just really good books. Maybe fewer gallons of semen.
Not by much, though.
But like, if you like it, then more gallons of it. It's fine. However much semen you wish for.
I think the thing, like the thing that I think is like also really interesting about it, and I mean, it's again like it's very gender and everything we've talked about today, right? Like this is not a book, like a episode where we're talking about like gender, like inclusivity or anything, but The thing that's also really interesting, I don't know if anybody else had this like thing. And when I first read Morning Glory Milking Farm or saw the title, I thought for sure it was going to be about breast milk.
Yeah.
And I think there's also something interesting about the way that like it puts like the production, like whatever this like a man is producing, right? into some kind of like frame that like we're not used to thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a real like old school, like Vanderbilt, Carnegie, robber baron kind of thing.
Right? I don't know, man.
He who controls the semen controls the world.
Woof. I don't even know what to say about it.
Well, Joanna, thank you so much. What do you have coming? Do you know what's coming next in 2024? Or what we can expect in 2024 from you? Yep.
Joanna Shupe has a book coming out in the fall, The Gilded Heiress. More Mila Finelli, mafia, mayhem.
Goodness.
Coming as well. Lots of stuff. So, yeah, I'll be around.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. This is Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop and Joanna Shupe and Joanna Shupe / Mila Finelli. Joanna, where can people find you?
JoannaShupe.com and MilaFinelli.com.
Perfect. You can look below in show notes and find a collection of Joanna / Mila books that we love, along with many of the books that we talked about today and some that we did not remember the name of, but we'll sort that out.
Taken by the Russian, everybody. I looked it up.
Awesome. You can find more of us at fatedmates.net. We are on Twitter still at Fated Mates. We are on Instagram at Fated Mates Pod. We are trying really hard to be on Threads at Fated Mates Pod. And you can also join us on our Patreon at fatedmates.net/Patreon. Thank you, as always, to all of you for listening. Thanks to our sponsors for sponsoring. Thanks to Joanna / Mila for joining us.
This was the best. You guys are the greatest. You guys are the greatest. Only with you two could we have a very serious discussion about the quality of quantity of semen and reading.
What it all means. Right. Like
right.
Both that it's hot and what does it all mean? That's our specialty here.
Why is it hot? What does it all mean? Exactly.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Chapter 1. Halsey.
Want one?
Odin asks, holding out a piece of gum to me. I'm good, I answer as I focus on wrapping the blade of my stick with tape. He leans back against the locker bench and sighs heavily.
Do you ever get nervous before a game?
Odin O'Connor was our newest acquisition this January. The front office made some moves to stack our team leading into the second half of the season, and one of the biggest ones was OC. With Rivers' recent knee injury, OC was the perfect fill-in. Although, on the younger side, he has impressive puck-handling skills and powerful legs underneath him. No, I answer. Not really in the mood to talk, but also not wanting to come off as an asshole. Why? You nervous?
Yeah.
He crosses his arms over his chest.
I only get nervous on special occasions, though. This is my first home game with the Agitators. There's that unsaid pressure in the air that I have to prove myself.
Proved yourself last game with a goal and an assist, I say, as I snap the tape off and check my blade, making sure to secure the tape.
Nah. It takes time to earn the trust from the fans.
He leans forward, resting his arm on his legs.
I know trust doesn't come easy, especially when you're filling in for a team favorite.
I glance at OC and notice his tight shoulders and the worry on his brow. He hasn't spoken to many of the guys on the team. I know Posey was trying to get to know him the other night, but couldn't break through his shell. He's kept to himself a lot, but I've seen this tactic before. He's easing himself in. I can tell he has a fun personality just from how he skates around during warm-ups and from his previous interviews, but he's holding back as he immerses himself into the team. Probably smart. Don't put added pressure on yourself that's unnecessary, I say. He glances over at me.
You're telling me if you were in my position, you wouldn't feel the pressure of proving yourself?
Great question. If I were in his skates and traded mid-season to a new team, I'd probably feel the pressure. But I don't think I'd let it get to my head, not how it seems like he is. I would, I answer honestly. He nods and pauses for a moment before turning toward me.
Jesus. I half expected you to tell me you wouldn't feel the need to prove yourself and get my head out of my ass. What kind of pep talker are you?
What? I ask, surprised by the liveliness in his voice. See, I knew something was in there. Eli Hornsby walks over and pats OC on the shoulder.
Leaning on the wrong guy if you want someone to tell you to take your head out of your ass. Holmes is on the gentler side. If you want someone to give it to you hard, ask Taters. He'll punch you right where it hurts.
Not since he's fallen in love.
Pacey, our goalie says as he pulls up a chair and sits in front of me.
We've all softened since falling in love.
He looks at Eli.
Especially you.
He's not wrong. Hornsby is completely gone for his girl Penny, and now his little boy Holden.
Oh, fuck off. You're the softest of us all.
Eli says to Pacey. I might agree with that. It didn't take Pacey long to fall for Winnie. They're now engaged. Nah, the softest, that would be Taters. Silas Taters, also called Potato by Winnie, a nickname that has now started to catch on in the group. He's one of our wingmen, and fell fast and hard for Ollie. She now lives with him, and we barely see him.
So, all of you have girls?
OC asks.
Not our friend Holmes.
Eli pats me on the back with a knowing smile crossing his lips.
Although, there's a girl he wished.
Can you shut the fuck up? I ask, knowing exactly where that was headed. Jesus Christ, I never should have told these idiots about my crush on Blakely, because they haven't been able to shut up about it. They think in some miraculous fashion, if they talk about it enough, she'll become single, and I'll get my chance. Manifestation, they tell me. They're all fucking morons. Blakely is not breaking up with her boyfriend. She's madly in love, something I've not only heard from the source itself, but also from Penny and Winnie. And because of that, I've moved on. A crush is just that, a crush. I can walk away from it. At least, that's what I'm trying to convince myself.
You have a crush?
OC asks.
On whom?
Great. Now the new guy's involved. Feeling the tension grow in my shoulders, I say, doesn't matter, she's...
Halsey!
My name is projected from the hallway, drawing all of our attention toward the locker room entrance.
Halsey!
The scream is shrill, practically at a pitch only dogs can hear.
Halsey! What the fuck is that?
Hornsby asks.
Is that Posey?
Pacey asks, just as Posey comes barreling into the locker room, looking slightly disheveled and breathing heavily.
Halsey!
He repeats, this time out of breath.
What the hell is going on?
Hornsby asks before I can. Posey hangs on to the open doorway while his lungs work overtime.
It happened.
What's happened?
Pacey asks. Posey presses his hands to his knees while bending over. The fucker skates for a living and he's out of breath. That doesn't bode well for our defense.
Fuck, the adrenaline.
He mutters, then stands tall again. Hands on his hips, he says,
The news we've been waiting for.
He takes a few steps into the round locker. With a bizarre expression of glee, he announces,
The time has come.
We all look around at each other, trying to see if anyone understands him. That would be a no.
The time has come for what?
Hornsby asks, his patience wearing thin just like the rest of us.
Stop being a nitwit and fucking tell us.
Silas says, walking up to the group. When did he get here? Posey looks me dead in the eyes with a huge smile and says,
She's a free woman, man.
Silence falls over the locker room once again, as we all attempt to decipher what the fuck he's talking about. Did he eat some bad bologna? Finally, Pacey, while pinching the bridge of his nose, says,
For the love of God, make sense.
I am.
Posey says in defense.
Blakely. She's a free woman.
Wait. What? Blakely? Free? As in...
Holy shit.
Hornsby says while gripping my leg.
Dude.
Who's Blakely?
OC asks, looking confused.
You have to ask her out.
Posey says, approaching us now.
Want me to formulate a plan? Yes, a plan. That's what we need.
Hornsby says.
We could do a flash mob.
Posey suggests.
Over my dead body.
Silas replies.
Don't be a douche about it. Just ask her out. Don't be a douche.
Pacey asks with a shake of his head.
Coming from the guy who had to fake date someone to fall in love?
You fake dated someone?
OC asks.
What the hell is going on here?
It's simple.
Posey says, leaning against Pacey's chair.
Pacey here was the start of the love train. He fell in love with a hopeless wanderer up in Banff. Her name is Winnie, and she got lost in the woods, stayed the night in Silas's cabin with the rest of us like the true champ that she is, and Pacey peed on her, said she was his, and now they're engaged.
I didn't pee on her.
Pacey interjects.
That brings us to Eli Hornsby, our former ladies' man. Coming from the biggest ladies' man on the team.
Hornsby says, gesturing to Posey, which, that's facts, he is. He just doesn't get called out for it. Posey continues.
On his birthday, he was looking for someone to bang, and he found Pacey's sister. Can you not say it that way?
Hornsby asks.
And he got her pregnant.
Posey says with gusto, the fucking storyteller of the group.
It was a long road for them. Jesus, the amount of time it took for Eli to finally realize he could give in to loving her. Some might say the author of his story could have cut out the last 15% and everybody would have still been pleased with the outcome. Not everyone can magically fall in love like Pacey.
Hornsby complains.
Love isn't always perfect all at once. You have to earn it.
Ignoring him, Posey moves on.
But with Penny in our life, we met Blakely, who works for the team in VIP sales and marketing. We got to know Blakely even better when she filled in for Penny during her maternity leave. I thought our friend Halsey was next when it came to hopping on the love train. But nope, Silas pops in with a fake dating relationship with...
Posey leans in and whispers,
a girl 10 years his junior.
You're an idiot,
Silas says.
And he almost didn't win her over. But thanks to my clever text messaging, he now has a live-in girlfriend, apparently the best sex he's ever had.
Dude, be respectful.
Silas growls. Posey holds his hands up.
Your words, not mine.
He smirks like the dick he is and continues.
But this entire time we've watched Halsey slowly grow more and more infatuated with Blakely, trying to pretend he doesn't care about her or by masking late nights with random women. But we all know he wishes those women were Blakely, and that he could hold her hand and go home to her warm, tender arms and bury his head right into her ample.
Enough, I yell. Posey continues to smirk.
And today, fellas... well, today is the day. Halsey Malachi Holmes is finally going to ask her out.
All the boys turn toward me, their waiting faces ready as if I'm about to raise my pointer finger and proclaim that today is the day. Not going to fucking happen. I shake my head. No, I'm not. And my middle name isn't Malachi. Posey's gleeful expression falls flat.
What do you mean you're not? Dude, she's a free woman. Ask her out.
Ooh, who are we asking out?
That very familiar female voice, who haunts me late at night, says as she enters the room. Motherfucker, did she hear us? My face turns bee-red as Blakely steps up to our circle, looking so fucking beautiful in a pair of dress shorts with a white blouse tucked into her waistline. Her 3-inch heels make her legs look so damn long it's almost as if they have no end. Will I ever stop getting butterflies whenever I see her? Probably not. I'm doomed. Silence falls over the locker room as all 6 of us idiots stare her down, the realization that she could have heard the whole conversation hitting us simultaneously and causing us to scramble to find our words. Pacey's lips seal shut, and his eyes widen as he looks at me for answers. He's no help. Silas crosses his arms and grins, probably enjoying this far too much. Eli shifts next to me, bowing his head and almost trying to sink back into nothing as if he was never here. Count him out as well. And then there's Posey mouthing,
She's here. She's here.
while subtly pointing to the side right at her. I know, you fucking moron. I have eyes.
Did I interrupt?
She asks, looking insecure now. Christ, someone needs to say something. Anything to make it seem like we weren't talking about her. Because the longer this silence goes on, the easier it will be for her to believe we were talking about her. Which we were. I take one more look at my boys and realize they have all abandoned me. What fucking friends they are. I rack my brain for something to say, anything that makes sense. But I come up short. And that's when a bead of sweat trickles down my back, making me painfully aware of just how awkward and uncomfortable I am.
You know.
OC chimes in, immediately making him my favorite.
We were talking about a girl I know.
What a fucking champion.
I'm Odin O'Connor, by the way.
Blakely White.
She says, leaning in to shake his hand. Her long brown hair brushes near me, sending me into a near catatonic state from the lavender scent.
It's so nice to meet you.
You too.
He says while dropping her hand quickly. Blakely then looks at Posey and says,
What happened to you? We were talking with Camper over in marketing and you just took off in the middle of a sentence.
Jesus Christ, Posey. He nervously smiles and says,
Bathroom emergency.
When her cute nose scrunches, he adds,
False alarm. But glad I hustled. You know, just in case. Sorry about that. I think you were saying something about moving out of your apartment because you broke up with your boyfriend?
That's when he cut out and left, right when she was talking about her breakup. Could he be any more fucking obvious? Blakely sighs heavily.
Yeah, I had to find a cheaper place.
You, broke up?
Eli asks.
Penny never said anything to me.
And this is why I like Hornsby. He'll wiggle out the truth in a conventional, non-evasive way, unlike Posey.
I haven't really said anything to anyone.
Blakely says.
Which seems weird that I'm talking to you guys about it, but yeah, we broke up a few weeks ago. I know Penny's been busy with the baby, so I didn't want to bother her. Anyway, I found a new place, but this morning the pipe above my apartment burst and flooded my place. It's been a nightmare, but you don't need to worry about that. I came here...
Where are you going to stay?
Posey asks.
Clearly not there.
Oh, trying to figure that out.
Does Penny know?
Eli asks.
I'm sure she would offer up our place.
Or ours.
Pacey adds, knowing Blakely is also good friends with Winnie. Silas scratches the back of his neck and says,
Ollie would probably do the same.
Blakely shakes her head.
No offense, Eli, but not going to room with an infant. I love him, but not that much. And Winnie and Ollie would offer, but I'm also not going to stay with two happy couples having sex every chance they get.
Understandable.
Holmes isn't happy, and he doesn't have a lot of sex.
Posey says out of fucking nowhere. What? Blakely brings her attention to me with a tilt of her head.
Not having a lot of sex, Holmes?
Kill me? Kill me right fucking now?
I mean, he has sex.
Posey interjects.
But not like the other guys, you know. He's not a virgin, if that's what you're thinking. Far from a virgin. Although there was a point in time when I wondered if he even had genitals.
Shut up.
Silas mutters, thankfully.
Right.
Posey clears his throat.
Anyway, he has a spare bedroom, and he's not part of a happy couple, and for all we know, he doesn't have an infant, so, you know, you could stay with him.
What the actual fuck is he doing? Blakely, stay with me? I can barely look at her or talk to her. Sharing a living space would probably send me into a nervous breakdown.
Are you his landlord?
Blakely teases.
More like his hairy godmother.
Posey makes himself laugh. And only himself. Either Blakely is being polite, or she's unaware of the tension building in our circle. As much as I love Posey for everything he is, he's putting me on the goddamn spot right now. I'm pretty sure it's not something I can handle. Hell, I know it's not something I can handle. What if she accepts? What the hell am I supposed to do, live with my crush? How would that fucking work? Me walking around the apartment, stumbling over my words, and trying not to stare at her too much while she lives her life, probably taking on the opinion that I'm some sort of a goddamn nutjob? No. This cannot happen. Not to mention, there's no way she would ever live with someone she barely knows. She has a good head on her shoulders, so she'll probably find a hotel or...
Is it a real offer?
She asks. My gaze snaps up to hers, and from the corner of my eye, I can see Posey's obnoxious smile, the satisfaction that must be running through him right now. Huh? I asked, blanking completely.
The offer to stay at your place. Is it real?
She can't be serious. No way does she want to stay with me. She barely knows me. Sure, we've talked here and there, and I've told her she looked beautiful in her dress a couple of times. But stay with me? She might be desperate, but not that desperate.
It is,
Posey says.
He was telling me the other day that he wishes someone could water his bonsai tree when he's on away trips. He's always worried it will die when he's gone.
What the fuck is a bonsai tree?
Don't you have to spritz them with water gently?
She asks.
You would think,
Posey says.
But I believe Holmes lets his soak up its own water, don't you?
Where the fuck does he come up with this shit? Yeah, I answer, like an idiot.
And he has the cutest name for his tree, too, don't you?
Posey asks me. Why is he doing this to me? Have I done something to hurt him? Have I somehow embarrassed him in a way that I'm unsure about? Is this revenge?
Sherman, right?
Silas asks, getting in on it. Oh, look who's dead to me as well. Posey and Silas, both dead to me.
Aw, Sherman is such a cute name for a plant.
She smiles that smile that haunts me in my dreams. The one that grips my balls so fucking tight that I almost can't breathe around her.
His pride and joy,
Posey says.
And given the drought scare he had with Sherman a few weeks ago, I'm sure he would love someone to look after him.
Blakely locks eyes with me and says,
Well, if you truly want someone to watch over him, I'm your girl. I could use the room because the hotel I'm staying in tonight is way more than I can afford for weeks on end, and I'd pay you for rent.
He doesn't need your money.
Eli chimes in.
He's loaded. The man has one of the best contracts in the league.
Not necessary to put out there, but yeah, it's true.
Okay, well, I can take care of Sherman for free. That's if you'll let me.
Everyone in the circle turns their attention to me. I swear this feels like I've been sucked into an alternate universe where professional hockey players have pet bonsai trees with old man names and toss around spare bedrooms like candy. I woke up this morning thinking I have a game to prepare for, and that's it. Now I might have a temporary roommate, but not only that, a roommate whose beauty and sweetness make me fucking lose all sense of myself. Eli nudges me with his elbow and I clear my throat. Yeah, that would be cool, I say, even though I can feel my entire body break into a full sweat.
Amazing.
Blakely brings her hands together, grateful to me for saving her day.
Let me have your phone so I can plug in my number.
I'm shell-shocked, still unsure how this happened. So Eli grabs my phone from next to me, flashes the Face ID at me, and hands it over to her. She types her number in, and when I look up at Posey, he's giving me a thumbs up while wiggling his eyebrows. I hate him so much.
Here you go.
She hands me my phone back.
I sent myself a text, so I have your number too. Oh, wait.
She reaches for my phone and taps away on it before holding it up and taking a picture of herself.
There, now you also have my picture as the contact.
Yeah, I won't stare at that all night.
I hate when it shows up as just the initials in the contact.
She hands me back my phone.
I have the hotel for tonight, but I'll move in tomorrow. Thank you so much. This is a huge lifesaver, not to mention wallet saver.
Yeah, sure, of course, I say while shifting uncomfortably.
Okay, well, I came in here for Pacey. Would you be able to meet us in the media room? There's a family who made a wish to meet you, and I want to brief you.
Pacey stands.
Sure, no problem.
I watch them leave together, and when they're out of sight, I look straight at Posey. What the fuck was that?
Me doing you a favor? A thank you would be appreciated.
That is not doing me a favor. I lean back on the locker bench. That is setting me up for failure.
How is that setting you up for failure?
I don't know, I say sarcastically. How about the fact that I can barely talk to her, let alone look her in the eyes, or that I don't want to have her as a roommate because I have no fucking clue how to handle that, Or that I don't have a fucking bonsai tree or know where to even get one.
Yeah, I went a little loose on the bonsai tree,
he says while rubbing his palm against his jaw.
But come on, this is your moment. She's a free lady and now indebted to you. What more can you ask for?
I don't want her indebted to me, I say. Jesus, that's not how I want to handle this.
And how do you want to handle this?
Eli asks.
Because as far as I know, you'd never make a move.
You don't know that, I say defensively, even though I think it's true given my current state of life as a hermit. Call it gut instincts, but I was ready to ask her out when I first met her. Then, the more I got to know her, the more I realized she's way out of my league. She's bright and fun and free. I'm the complete opposite. I can't even remember what fun is. I live to play hockey, and when I'm not playing hockey, I escape into books. I keep a solid regimen so I don't have to think or battle the thoughts in my head. I don't know how to be any other way. I don't know how to survive any other way. And throwing Blakely into the mix as my roommate, that will mess everything up. I can feel it already.
You wouldn't have ever asked her out,
Silas says, arms folded.
Sorry, but it's true. I usually don't agree with Posey and his shenanigans, but I kind of agree with this move.
Thank you.
Posey bows, like a moron.
Just doing the heavy lifting over here. I'll take thank yous whenever you want to toss them my way in forms of cash or baloney.
The only thing you're getting from me is a trip to the plant store. You got me into this mess and you're going to help me get out of it, I say.
Get out of it?
Posey shakes his head.
Oh no, we're going to find a way to make this permanent. Mark my words, you and Blakely are going to be boyfriend and girlfriend by the end of the season. There will be so much kissing in your future that you'll beg me to clue you in on what kind of lip balm I use to keep things so fresh.
You're an idiot, I say, blowing by him and heading straight to the restroom, where I might dry heave because holy shit, Blakely will be living with me.